So I'm going to cover a method for drawing the head in this one, and this is something that I discovered when looking at Andrew Loomis. He has a book titled Drawing the Head and Hands, and this method in particular is really helpful when it comes to constructing the head from different angles. So let's get into it. Before I begin drawing these heads on different angles in perspective, I want to briefly go over the standard proportions that Loomis covers in his book. Here is a diagram of the head on a front and side view, with grid lines over this dividing the head into equal units relative to the size you are drawing this at. The head is 3 1/2 units high. On a front view it's 3 units wide, and on a side view the head is 3 1/2 units wide. If you've watched any of my videos on anatomy, specifically the video in which I discuss how to draw the skull, you'll know that a similar approach can also be taken when looking at the proportions of the skull. The reason why we do this is because these grid lines indicate where to place the various facial features. The vertical centre line is drawn and then divided into 3 equal units. Once the size of one unit is established, half a unit is then added at the top. Starting from the top, this would be the top of the head. Half a unit down from this assumes a hairline. Of course, this can vary between people. Another unit down, this line represents the brow line. This line is the bottom of the nose. If I half this unit and then half this top section again, this line would mark the position of the eyes. And again, by making some further divisions, I can position the mouth. This unit is halved, and this gives me the line for the mouth with lips at either side. Notice how the ears sit within this middle unit from the brow line to the bottom of the nose. Loomis also gives us some dividing lines across its width, which measures the location of features. We know the head is 3 units wide on a front view. These dividing lines cross the line for the eyes, marking their exact position. He then divides each of these units in half to estimate the width of the nose and mouth, and also the shape of the head. These divisions also apply to the head on a side view, and it's worth stating that these are some standard guidelines you can consider when drawing, but there is some room to vary the position of these features to create different faces. It would be weird if we all looked like this. So those are some proportional guidelines to keep in mind as we begin drawing this in perspective. However, if I was to say, right, you know where everything goes, now go and draw this on different angles, you'd probably not know where to start. Thankfully, Loomis also has an easy method for constructing the head. The cranium of the head is represented as a sphere. On this flat diagram, it's a circle. Pay attention to its relationship with the grid lines, as these also divide up the circle. This ball only covers part of the head, leaving out around 1/2 at the bottom. This is where we add the jaw. Be sure to study this diagram and memorise these divisions. For now, let's put this aside and look at how all of this applies when drawing the head in perspective. We start drawing the head by drawing a sphere, therefore it's important to firstly know how to draw a sphere in perspective. Now, drawing spheres is fairly simple. We start with a circle. The problem with this is that this looks flat. There's no sense of form here or any indication of what angle this is on. That's why when drawing spheres in perspective, we add what is often referred to as contour lines. These are lines which wrap around the sphere. But what's interesting here is that we are essentially drawing ellipses by doing this. Here I have a tennis ball. Ideally, I should have a glass ball because you'd be able to see through it, but I'm using what's available here. Anyways, I'm going to wrap an elastic band around this tennis ball like this, and now this elastic band has formed a perfect circle. Right? Again, you'd see that more clearly if this was a glass ball, but as I rotate this ball in my hand, that elastic band appears as an ellipse when viewed at different angles, and that's basically what we are drawing here. A circle becomes an ellipse when viewed in perspective. So this is my sphere or tennis ball that I've drawn, and this is my ellipse or elastic band wrapping around it. Now I'll wrap another elastic band around this, but I'll have this one be perpendicular to the first one. These would cross each other like so. So if I do the same here with another elastic band, just give me a second. There we go. You can see that these elastic bands cross each other at either side, and the points at which they cross each other are directly opposite to each other. Now here I can draw a line through these points and create an axis through the sphere. This indicates the angle of the sphere, or in this case, the direction our head will be facing. I'm trying to stick this nail through this tennis ball to give you another example, but I can't seem to ram it through. Hopefully you understand this though. So now what if I was to tell you that these lines for the ellipses we've drawn are the same dividing lines used to divide the head up into the units that we had looked at the start. This line is the centre line for the face, and this line is that brow line across the middle. Take a look at this example from Loomis himself. This shows a series of spheres that include the same perpendicular ellipses that cross each other. Where they cross each other determines the position of the facial plane on the ball, the angle the head is facing. This is the key point of construction for the whole head, therefore you should start practicing by drawing out spheres on different angles. Here I'm doing that here. I'm drawing out a series of spheres and wrapping the lines around them to indicate a direction. As you do this, try and visualise the ball in a three-dimensional space and have your ellipses wrap around it. I always draw the entire ellipse as well. What we have to do in this next step is definitely something I won't be able to do with this tennis ball. We have to slice off the sides. Like Loomis shows here, once we have an established angle, we need to slice off the sides of the sphere. This would create a smaller ellipse at either side. These are actually tapered inwards as well, creating a flat plane. I'll do this for all these spheres here. Now this can be trickier than it might seem because drawing ellipses on angles in perspective is hard to get right. These ellipses should be parallel to the ellipse that represents the centre line, and they should be placed centrally to the ellipse that represents the brow line. The reason why we slice these off, by the way, is because it represents the shape of the head better. Loomis describes this as a flattened ball. So now we move on to the next step where we have to divide our centre line into the three units that we had looked at the start. So we already have one of our lines being the brow line across the middle. To find the next unit down and to establish the size of one unit here, we firstly need to extend a straight line down from this point. Once we have that line, we can mark on those divisions. You want to mark a line that's roughly in a line with the bottom of the ellipse that was made when we had sliced off the sides. This establishes the size of one unit relative to your drawing, and so now you can mark another unit down from that, as well as a unit above like so. So here I do the same to all of these examples. The line you drop down is always tangent to that ellipse which forms the brow line. This shouldn't be too difficult given that you know the direction these are facing now. So now we are almost done constructing these heads. There's just one thing they are missing, the jaw. Thankfully, this is easy to do. The lines we draw for this start at the bottom at this point here and curve up to the centre of the ellipses at the sides. I always add a line after this which connects this up at the front. Of course, this can vary depending on the angle of the head being drawn. Again, I'll do this to all of these examples here, and you can see how this appears on different angles. Now at this stage, further divisions can be made, such as those that indicate the position of the mouth and eyes. Now I can finish constructing these heads. At this point, the facial features can be added, seeing as you know where everything needs to go. Again, refer back to those earlier diagrams that I had shown at the start. Now, for those of you who watch a lot of my videos, you probably know that I'm currently covering how to draw all of the facial features in their separate videos as part of my study session series. Once I have finished covering all of them, I will be making a follow-up video which ties back into this one, and I'll be adding all of the features on onto what we have drawn and looked at today. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, then please leave a like, subscribe to stay up to date, and I will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the content I create, then do consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You will gain access to exclusive tutorials, study documents, process papers, real-time drawing footage and more. Plus you will also be supporting me in a more personal way. Other than that, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you soon.